All right, we'll get started in just a second here. We're letting the stream catch up with us. Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is the Stevensville Town Council meeting for Thursday, August 27th, 2020. Just a note for you folks, Janelle Berthoud had a pre-arranged absence prior to being hired on as the town clerk. And so she is not with us tonight. So I will be calling roll in the votes for you folks. So we'll start with roll call. Councilmember Devlin.
Here.
Councilmember Holcomb.
Here.
Councilmember Michelson.
Here.
Councilmember Vick.
Here.
All right, great. If you would bear with me here a second, we'll do the quick Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. This is an opportunity for public comment on items that are not on tonight's agenda. We have not received any public comment from our public comment forms through our website. And no public comment for this meeting. We have received public comment for future meetings, but of other commissions, but none for this meeting specifically. And it doesn't appear that we have anybody on the phone either. And so we will move on to cover the approval of the minutes. Council has a memo from me in your packet regarding the approval of minutes. As Janelle returns, she's continuing to work through the backlog that was brief backlog that was created when Monica was vacant from the position. So she is working on that. And I expect that at your next meeting, you'll at least have some minutes to approve, if not the entire onslaught of what's pending. So bear with us for that. I know that many people were eager to see the public comments submitted from the past meetings. And we've made that available on our website under the view details section of each meeting on the meetings page. So folks can go review all of the comment that was received by email or in writing. A lot of that was scanned in as well. Next on the agenda for council's consideration, you have approval of the biweekly claims. Mr. Underwood sent the claims into you folks last night. Is that correct, Robert? Yep. Okay, and so you have before you tonight claims number 16167 all the way through 16189 with the addition of 16179. That's included in that range, but it's a separate sheet for you folks outlining the the liability insurance claim for our annual liability renewal. I'll entertain a motion to approve the claims.
I move to approve the claims.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's
Go
been
ahead,
moved.
Robin.
It's been moved by Mr. Vick, seconded by Ms. Holcomb to approve the biweekly claims. Questions from council? Okay. All right, hearing no questions, I will call for the vote. Councilmember Devlin.
Aye.
Devlin votes aye. Councilmember Holcomb.
Aye.
Holcomb votes aye. Councilmember Michelson.
Aye.
Michelson votes aye. Councilmember Vick.
Aye.
Vick votes aye. Motion passes unanimous. All right. There are no administrative reports on your agenda tonight, nor are there any guests or correspondence, public hearings, or unfinished business. We have a brief new business agenda this evening for you. We'll move into new business item A, discussion decision on resolution 387E, amending the town council rules. This comes primarily from Mr. Vick. who proposed a time limit on public comment. He had initially written a separate resolution for the time limit. The administration went ahead and incorporated that resolution into the amendment of the council rules so that the entire thing was all in one place rather than in two separate places to refer to in terms of rules. But the spirit and nuts and bolts of Mr. Vick's sentiments from his original motion are incorporated herein. Mr. Vick, do you want to speak to this any further?
Yeah, I want to go ahead and make a motion to table this until we return to in-person meetings.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Vick, seconded by Ms. Devlin to table the item until we return to in-person meetings. Is there any further discussion from council? Okay, let me check. Make sure we're not receiving any comment. Okay, you did receive a comment from Vicky Motley and under general public comments for your review council, and we'll get that uploaded on the website. To the agenda item, if there's no council discussion or public comment, I'll call for the vote to table the item until in-person meetings. Councilmember Vick,
Aye.
Councilmember Michelson,
Aye.
Councilmember Holcomb,
Aye.
Councilmember Devlin. Devlin votes aye. Okay, next item on your agenda then is new business item 11B, which is the surplus of surplus equipment. Get that pulled up here. It's resolution 479 declaring certain property as surplus and authorizing its disposal. You have 3 additional vehicles from the last round of surplus that we've declared. The 2005 Grand Victoria, which is the police cruiser, the 1982 Chevy van from the Public Works Department, and the 1998 Chevy Lumina as an administrative vehicle. The administration asks that the council would consider these items all surplus. We do not need to keep them around by any means. And once this action is completed, the administration, namely the finance and department and town clerk, will undertake the bidding process to dispose of these items forthwith.
Brandon,
Mr. Michelson, go ahead.
I make a motion to approve resolution 479 declaring certain property as surplus and authorizing its disposal.
I'll second it. Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Michelson, seconded by Ms. Holcomb to approve resolution 479 declaring certain property as surplus and authorizing its deposition.
Brandon?
Yes, Mr. Michelson.
Yeah, I was going back through the minutes, and last August, this came up when you guys were discussing the budget and the police vehicles, and it was discussed and approved then to put three squad vehicles surplus into the to be surplused out, excuse me. And then I had an email here from February 19th from Chief Marble and I, where he was going to surplus these vehicles. I guess my question is, why just one and not those 3 that are sitting out there?
So the rest of those were already declared surplus in your last surplus resolution. So this was one vehicle we were keeping for a backup. Now that we've ordered the 2 police vehicles, there's no need for this one to serve as a backup because we'll have other vehicles to serve as a backup. So when the 3rd officer is hired, this will leave us all total of police vehicles. This will leave us with 1 spare vehicle as a reserve. So those other vehicles sitting there are already declared surplus. The council already completed that action.
So you're going to surplus the ones tonight and those ones already declared surplus?
Correct. The ones that have already been declared surplus will be sold with these ones. We're waiting on the sale of those until these are declared. This is what's holding up those vehicles. Otherwise, they'd have probably been gone by now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other council comment? All right, I don't see any public comment coming through. Okay. The motion is to approve Resolution 479. And so with that, there's no further discussion from council. I'll call for the vote. Councilmember Devlin.
Aye.
Devlin votes aye. Councilmember Holcomb.
Aye.
Holcomb votes aye. Councilmember Michelson.
Aye.
Michelson votes aye. And Councilmember Vic.
Aye.
Vic votes aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. In brief, that covers the business portion of the council's agenda tonight. I realize it's brief and there's not a lot to undertake. An executive report for you this evening. I can tell you that I plan to return to the office on Monday in my full regular capacity prior to the birth of my daughter. I'm anxious to get my sleeves rolled up and get back in. Although I've still been making do remotely, I think the staff and I are ready to get back to it and get to the work this fall. So regular office hours will resume starting Monday for me. The police department is rapidly preparing to move into their new location on Main Street. That facility needs a few finishing touches and then it will be 100% ready to go. Some of the equipment and such will start transitioning over as early as next week, if not late this week, and perhaps over the weekend. But for sure, next week we will start moving a bulk of that stuff over, and we look forward to hosting the council for an open house so you folks can get your eyes on that facility and see the improvement it'll be for the police department. We're very excited about that transition. I know that there has been a plethora of correspondence between the council and the Planning and Zoning Board and citizens in the community regarding the Burnt Fork Estates subdivision. Please bear with us as we sift through a lot of that. There were a lot of email chains that were very difficult to follow. I have expressed my reasoning, position, decision, theory, all of that to the council in terms of why we continue to hold virtual meetings. And mind you, the administration and I are watching this on a daily basis. We review the press releases coming out of public health, and we're tracking the number of cases as they increase and decrease in River Valley County to really get a sense of when it's safe to hold in-person meetings again. My intent all along has been that hopefully your September 10th council meeting will be an in-person meeting, and we're going to plan that direction as much as we can, but there's no guarantees. Of course, as if we see community spread, that may not be the case, and we may be stuck this way. A number of municipalities are still doing virtual meetings. Some have not met since March in person. Some have not met since March at all. Very, very small communities out there have just decided not to hold meetings at all. I don't think that's an option for us or our community, of course. And so I'll leave that issue there as I've already just expressed that to the council in an email. Otherwise, the executive report, I don't have much else to report there that hasn't been shared with you already. You can expect probably some more in-depth conversation at your September 10th meeting once I'm back in the office and have my hands back on things, and the departments have their monthly reports. So unless there's any questions from council, I'll entertain those for a second if you need to. Okay.
Hey, Brandon,
Yes, sir.
do you want to give a brief synopsis of what's going on up at the airport? I mean, if anybody's got any questions on that, I'll try to fill them in the best we can. We don't know a whole big bunch quite yet, but just so everybody's on board.
Yeah, and I think, and forgive me, I recall Robert perhaps sending an email out, and I thought that maybe went to the council, but if it didn't, if it missed you folks, we'll recap. The Forest Service has activated or reactivated rather the land use agreement to use the airport as a helibase for the Cinnabar fire. As of today, I believe there's 4 helicopters staged up there, and they are using the school resource, or excuse me, the snow removal building, SRE building. We are basically on standby for any further services, whether they need firefighter standby or anything else from the town of Stevensville under our contract with them. We are prepared fully to provide that to our ability. So we're kind of in a holding pattern, but they are have set up a, I guess you call it a spike camp adjacent to the airport. It's not on town property, it's adjacent to it. But that relates to the Cinnabar fire as well. So fire season certainly looks different this year given the pandemic we're in. But fortunately, the fire season being what it has been, fire department has done and Robert have done a fabulous job of making sure we're prepared for when the call comes. And so community can sleep sound tonight knowing that when Forest Service calls and asks for service, we can deliver it. So I think that hits everything I need to hit. If I forget anything, of course, I can touch base with you folks, but I'll turn it over to council comments.
Brandon,
Yes, sir. Ma'am, excuse me.
I will not make it at the September 10th. I'll be on vacation, so I will send an email to everybody to get an approval. Or I'll send you an email and you can pass it on.
Sounds good. Thanks, Robin. If you just copy Janelle on that as well, make sure we both see it.
Okay, I will.
Thank you. Any further council comments from the council?
Brennan?
Mr. Michelson.
Yeah, I'd still like to stand fast with my opinion and many others in this town. I'm glad if you're thinking seriously of coming back to the September 10th meeting to go public. But I also would really encourage you to change your mind on the planning and zoning. I've talked to many old hands that did the Creekside development in 2004, and there was no way that they did that in one meeting. And knowing the depth and the magnitude of this development, I think it would be a disservice to try to do it in one night and one Zoom meeting when it could impact this town and our businesses and everything else in so many ways. I don't see how we could possibly get it done in one night and then rush right to the public hearings. I think this is something that the public needs to be involved in person. And I know you have your feelings too, Brandon, but I'm telling you, this is a big deal in this town and these people need to be heard by voice. So please, please, Brandon, please reconsider this. Thank you.
Any further comment from council? Ms. Devlin.
So a couple topics that I wanted to touch on. Mr. Michelson, I agree with you in what you're saying. I think the hard position that we're in is there's one side of the people that are saying, yes, we want to have public in-person meetings. We have a whole nother side of the people in the town that are saying we like it the way that it is. From the emails that I've seen, the public or the planning and zoning board, there's 3 members of that board that are not comfortable having in-person meetings due to the pandemic we're in. So I think that poses kind of a little snafu, if you will. I believe that it was referred to Mr. Chilcote, who did refer it back to Brandon. So I'm not sure that the board made that decision when they were given the opportunity to do so as a whole, right? So there's 2 people that were for and 3 people that were against. So I just think we have to be mindful moving forward that there are people that are totally thrilled and happy with the way that things are going. And I'm not saying that we do it one way or the other. I'm just saying we have to be mindful of everyone. We're not going to hit it. We're not going to make everybody happy. But I think at some point, like I said at our last meeting, we have to find that middle ground. Which brings me to my next point. Everything at this moment in our town and in our nation is hugely emotionally charged. I'd like to just maybe see us all take a little breath and step back a little bit. It doesn't always have to be one way or the other. We can agree to disagree. We can agree to meet in the middle. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has a strong opinion. The four of us council members and the mayor, we're in a tough position because we hear from everyone. We hear everyone's viewpoints, pros, cons. We have to be the voice of that. I just ask that everybody maybe be kind to one another, be kind to us. This is a difficult situation, just a difficult time. We're having to make hard decisions that we normally wouldn't be faced up against. So patience and just kindness goes a long way. None of us elected, you guys have heard me say this before, none of us were elected taking on the role of maneuvering through hatred, right? So I don't think any of us are still in the position where we want to be in a hateful situation or be having to negotiate and work through and discuss things in a hateful manner. So that would be, I would just encourage everybody, right? Let's find some medium ground. Whatever your stance is, let's be kind. Let's remember that at the end of the day, we are all humans and we are all trying to get through this and make as many people happy as we can. Sometimes we nail it and sometimes we don't. But when we don't, it's not for lack of trying, right? So let's just remember that and be kind in our movements forward.
Thanks, Jamie. Mr. Vick, any comment? You're the only one that hasn't gone yet.
I'm just happy to be here, but everyone have a good night and hopefully get to see everybody in person in 2 weeks.
Great, thanks, Dempsey. I don't believe any boards have met, so we can skip right over the board reports and move towards adjournment. You will have some business on your agenda. Of course, you'll have your administrative reports on your next agenda for September 10th, but then you'll also have some other things to consider. We aren't planning on putting a whole lot of material. There isn't a whole lot to decide on at this time anyway, but we're not planning to put a whole lot of business material on your September 10th agenda other than some light items that have been requested. And that's largely in part because September 10th is the first scheduled public hearing, first of 3 public hearings on the the Burnt Fork Estates subdivision. So that public hearing will occur during our town council meeting, and there will be 2 public hearings following that. A note on those meetings before we adjourn, and this may address one concern Mr. Michelson had. If the Planning and Zoning Board meets and they do not feel they can make a recommendation in a single meeting, then it's up to them to schedule additional meetings. And the Planning and Zoning Board is not driven by the mayor's office on helping facilitate getting the meeting scheduled, but that is really up to their chairperson and up to their own board to decide when they meet and those things. In this case, I scheduled the virtual meeting because no one on their board wanted to make that decision and I needed to get the public notice out for the meeting. But I think, if the board decides on September 3rd that they need to have another meeting, then we'll publish another agenda and have another meeting, and that board can meet as many times as it needs to make a decision or a recommendation. And mind you, the town council can hold its public hearings in unison with that. There's no problem having multiple meetings. Perhaps the more the merrier. While the town is only required to hold one, we want to provide as much opportunity as possible for people to be heard. And so just know that. And if the town council can't reach a decision by the second meeting in September, then we'll schedule another meeting for you to consider the subdivision. So we are trying to stick to that October 1st deadline because we have a commitment to do that. That is state statute. But if we need to hold more meetings between now and then that's exactly what we'll do. So, and no matter what that venue looks like. So appreciate your consideration of that. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, we'll adjourn.
Make a
Motion.
motion to
Thank
adjourn.
you.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
You too.